Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker. Look here, appreciate all the well wishes, man. And on my birthday out there, I really appreciate that, right? But I'm still a little down under the weather, a little bit, just a little bit, right? So you might hear it in my voice here and there, whatever. But other than that, I'm pretty good. I'm feeling all right today, so I'm a little bit better. So if you hear my voice and it sounds a little off, it's still me. I just got, you know what I'm saying, a little lingering effects of I think it was the flu. You feel what I'm saying? At least that's what they say it was. You know what I mean? But anyway, let's get straight to it. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about this young girl. When her father left, she was months old, actually. She was months old, and her father was put in prison for killing her mother. He was a violent gang member, and it's not important which gang it was, you know what I'm saying? But I want to just make sure that you understand the fullness of this story. It's going to take you on a whirlwind. This daughter, his daughter, is she's a daddy's girl. She's a daddy's girl, and not blindly. But anyway, look here. Just pay attention to this story, right? Because this is one of those stories where you're going to be like, man, this is unbelievable. Right? So sit back, relax, and enjoy this show, y'all. It was a very, very cold afternoon, right? It was during the winter, and this young brother named Red, he came home, and he got into an argument with his wife, his girlfriend, but he considered her to be his wife. She had just had their little daughter, and she was just going through some things and tired of him not being at home like he should have been. He's out and about. He's not respecting that she needs some help. She's not getting any sleep. You know how it is when you have a newborn. She can't get any rest, but he doesn't seem to care about that. He wants to run up and down the streets with his friends and do the things that you do out in the streets, right? Not taking his responsibilities seriously like a lot of us do. When we're out there, you know what I'm saying, and we have a woman in our lives that's really holding us down, but we're not holding them down. So they get into an argument. And a shotgun is grabbed. Now, it's some question whether she grabbed it or he grabbed it first, but at the end of the day, the shotgun goes off and it hits her in her chest. Hits her in the chest, knocks her back. Immediately, he gets down on her and he's saying, baby, are you all right? Are you all right? Testimony from him, she can't even talk because she's gurgling blood out of her mouth. It's coming out of the side of her mouth, out of her nose, out of her ears. She's laying on the floor, dying in front of him. She cannot even catch her breath. He grabs the phone, he calls 911, and he's telling them what happened. He's saying, I don't know what happened. The gun just went out. And they said, does she have a pulse? He's telling them that she has a pulse, I think, but he's looking at her, and as he's talking to them, looking at her, her eyes roll back into the backs of her heads. We know what that means, y'all. We know what that means. She passed away right there in front of him. And when she passed away, he remembers hearing his daughter crying. He didn't say he had forgotten about her, but his focus was on his girlfriend, his wife, the woman that he had a child with. His focus was on her. She was in the back crying. She didn't know what was going on. She was a baby. She had been awakened by the sound of the shotgun and the arguing that they had been participating in. So when she woke up, he runs back her. He says he had blood all over him. He grabbed her, trying to console her. His mind is gone. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to think. The mother of his child is laying on the floor, dying, choked on her own blood. He's holding his new baby in his arms. She's wrapped up in a blanket, but it's covered with the blood of her mother because his hands were all over her. He was trying to help her. The police arrive. The police walk in, and there he is. He's holding the baby. They come through the door, according to him. Get out on the ground. What's going on? He's saying, she's on the floor. She got shot. They say, who shot her? He said, the gun just went off. They don't want to hear that. A female officer comes in and she grabs the baby out of his arms, and they take him and they put his hands behind his back and they set him down on the couch while they go to her and they try to administer CPR, but she's gone. She's gone. But the ambulance is right with them, so they come in anyway. They put her on the gurney, and as they're taking her out, they're still trying to get her back. They can't. On the ride to the hospital, they call it. She's dead. She's gone. Now he's sitting in his apartment. His daughter has been taken away by the officers. They're grilling him. What happened? Tell us what happened. He said, I came home. We got to arguing. The shotgun went off. They said, who grabbed the shotgun? He said, I don't know. I think I did. So you grabbed the shotgun, they said, and then the shotgun just went off and it killed her, hit her in the chest. And he said, yeah, man, but the shotgun just went off. And they kept going over and over and over this story with him until they nailed down that he admitted that he grabbed the gun. He admitted that he shot her. But he never said, I shot her. He said the gun went off. But they said, so you shot her? He said, yeah, I guess so. So that leaves them to say, you shot her. So they tell him to stand up. Everything is going to be okay. He said, where is my daughter? She said, the female officer said, your daughter's going to be okay. Do you have any family members that we can call? They can come and pick her up. He said, why? That's when the male officer tells him, you're going to jail. We're going to charge you with murder. We're going to charge you with murder of this young woman. So they took him to jail and they charged him with murdering his wife, his girlfriend. You know how we do. We say somebody's our boo baby, the one that we love. So yeah, to him, she was his wife, the mother of his child, and he loved her dearly. But like a lot of young people, he didn't know how to show her the way he should have been showing her how he appreciated her. He didn't know how to show her that. So when he came home and they got to arguing and then she ended up dead, now he's playing back all types of things in his mind that he wishes that he would have done different. So now when his lawyer comes to see him, because he's booked in and he's in the county jail, the lawyer comes to see him, he's feeling depressed. And he's talking to the lawyer. And the lawyer said, look, listen to me. They want to charge you with first-degree murder. And if we take this to trial, it's a high chance because of your background, because of your history, because of your past arrest, that you're going to be found guilty and you're going to be given a life sentence and you'll never see your daughter again. Ever. So if you take this plea, now keep in mind, this is the first time that the lawyer has come to see him. So if you take this plea, I can get you 20 years at 100%. At least you'll be able to see your daughter when she turns 20. And he said and he thought about it, and he thought about it. And he said, I can't do that. I didn't kill her. I didn't kill her. He said, all you have to do is tell the truth and everything will work out. That's what he kept telling himself. But he knew how the system worked, especially when it was up against a young black man that was a gang member. He knew, but he had been he's in the county jail, and he does like a lot of people in the county jail. He starts to rationalize in his mind, if they just knew what really happened, then I'm not going to jail. I didn't kill her. I didn't do it. The gun just went off on its own. It went off on its own. So when he got back upstairs on the floor where he was housed in the county jail, he was telling a couple of his friends, his gang member buddies, what the lawyer had said. And they said, man, you better take that plea. He said, man, I didn't do it, man. I got a young baby out there. I got to get back out there to her. And now they looking at him all cross-eyed, like, you wasn't worried about her before. Now you worried about her now. Man, you better take that plea. Because if you don't take that plea, you ain't going to never see her no more. Ever. He said, I can't take that plea, man. I didn't kill my gal. I didn't kill her. So he went on about his business. 6 months come up. They postponed the trial. The lawyer went at him again. Now, the lawyer had been down there to see him intermittently, you know what I'm saying, between here and there, preparing for the trial. But he was mainly trying to get him to plead guilty. But 6 months come up, and he's not budging. So the lawyer said, look, we need to put it off for a little bit more. We need to do some more investigating. He said, investigate what? He said, I'm trying to find out if this weapon has a problem with misfires. So that excited him. He got excited about that. He's like, oh, man. So he thought the lawyer was getting the gun tested. But he never saw any motion that was filed in the courts to get the gun tested. And he was just trusting what his lawyer told him. That's all he was doing. He was trusting his lawyer. See, when you're in the county jail and you're facing that kind of sentence, that charge, and you're facing that kind of time, you're so vulnerable that you'll believe almost anything when most of the time you know in your gut that it's a lie. But he wanted to believe that his lawyer was getting the weapon tested before he went up into that courtroom, because if he got it tested, he said they'll know that it went off because he didn't pull the trigger. He knew he never put his hand on the trigger. Him and his girl were pulling back and forth at the weapon, and it just went off and hit her. He knew he didn't pull that trigger. He knew he didn't. But anyway, the lawyer comes back to him in a couple of months and said the test shows that the gun didn't misfire. He told me he leaned back in the chair when the lawyer said that. He just looked at the lawyer and a tear ran down his cheek, and he was like, man, what am I going to do now? He said, man, we could take our chances at trial and fight it on appeal, or you can take this plea. I might be able to get him to go lower than the 20. He said, man, let me think about it. So he thought about it a little bit, called him on the phone a few days later, said, I can't do it. The lawyer goes off on him. He said, don't be wasting my time. I'm going down here trying to save your life. I'm going down here trying to get you to where your child won't grow up without you for her whole life. At least you'll have some time with her. You're still a young man. See, that's how they do you. They hit you with them psychological games, make you feel guilty because you want to fight. And he said, man, I understand what you're saying. Crying. He's crying on the phone. So the lawyer keeps pushing and pushing and pushing. He said, when I come down there next week, I'm going to have these papers. You need to be prepared to sign them. And then the lawyer just went gangsta on him and hung up the phone. He sat there at the phone in the pod, broke down. His brothers came and said, what's wrong? He couldn't even speak. He couldn't even get the words out. He couldn't imagine that he was finna go to jail for 20 years unless the lawyer got something smaller than that before he would be able to spend time with his daughter. Keep in mind, y'all, this man ain't had a chance to grieve. This man didn't even get to kiss his daughter goodbye. He didn't get to do any of that. His daughter don't even really know him right now. Doesn't even know him. But wait a minute. Hold up. Got something for you. His parents and the daughter's parents, they come together. They knew how much they loved each other, even though they argued a lot. They come together. They say, something ain't right here. Why would he do this? He keeps saying that the weapon it just went off on its own. He didn't fire the weapon. Now, don't get it twisted. The father of that young woman was still upset. And he wanted to have him punished. But the mother was like, I don't know. But his parents was like, look, whatever the case, we're not going to take it out on this little girl. We're going to raise her together. We're going to raise her together. And they agreed then to raise her together. And if he did end up in prison, that they would take her to see him. They were not going to hurt him like that. And I think that's a big thing right there. It's a big thing. So what happened was this. He ended up going to trial, y'all. He ended up going to trial. And they bipped it. They bipped it. They gave him a life sentence. Gave him a life sentence. And he's in jail waiting to be transferred. Now, he's been told what it's like in the penitentiary, especially as a gang member. So he has to embrace it or he's not going to survive this thing. So he embraced it. And they shipped him off to prison. And when he gets there, he goes all in. He's doing all the things that you have to do. But one thing about him that stood out above all the rest was that he learned in the county jail how to cut hair. He was a barber. He learned how to cut hair. So when he got to the prison that he was going to be doing his time, he signed up to become one of the barbers that can cut hair on the compound. And lo and behold, they had an opening. So he had to train up under one of the old heads for a while. And after about 6 months, they made him a barber. So now he had a steady job, somewhere to get away from the nonsense because he had to cut hair all day. And then he'd go to the library in the afternoon to work on his case. And as he worked on his case year after year after year, he learned that his lawyer never filed to have the weapon tested. So he's going back to court, filing ineffective assistance of counsel, trying to get that weapon tested. And if he gets the weapon tested, he believes that he will be freed. But they kept denying him. But the whole time they're denying him, guess what? His daughter is getting older. She's a teenager. She's getting ready to graduate high school. All of these years have passed by. She's 17 years old. She's been going to visit her daddy. She's been hearing what her grandparents have been telling her about her daddy, how her daddy said he didn't do it. And she wants to believe that. She has no reason not to believe that. My daddy said he didn't do it. He didn't do it. The grandparents wanted her to listen to him herself and make up her own mind. They did not want to poison her one way or the other. Make up your own mind because this was her daddy. This was her daddy. And she chose to believe her daddy. Now, some people were against that. Like I said, her mother's father still had hard feelings, but he wanted her to make her own decisions. So he told her how he felt. He told her how he felt. And she respected her granddad. But she loved her father. So she kept on pushing and kept on pushing. So one day, she found a lot of legal work in the attic at his parents' house. So she's going through it. She's a smart girl. She's going through all of this stuff. And she finds early on the motions that her father said didn't get filed and how he's been denied in court time after time after time. He's been maintaining his innocence from day one. Nobody's listening. Now this girl, she was determined. So this is what she did. She went to a lawyer. And she told him, my dad is innocent. They said, we can't help you. She had no money. So she started going to the libraries and finding these lawyers that do work pro bono. So she found some people that were in one of the local colleges that the professor would get the college students to look at the case. She talked these people into looking at the case. Just look at it. And they didn't know whether he was guilty or innocent, but they knew that he maintained his innocence and they wanted that weapon tested as well. So on year 19 of his incarceration, they get up in the courts and the judge said, let's test the weapon. So they're in the courtroom and they're arguing back and forth. The state saying, no, the man is guilty. We found him guilty. The jury found him guilty. And he's saying, I didn't do it to test the weapon. So what happens is his lawyer is up there and he's holding the weapon, y'all. And I'm telling you, you can't make this stuff up. This is not Hollywood. His lawyer's holding the weapon and he's shaking this weapon. He's impassioned. He's excited. He's empowered by this argument, and he wants the judge to understand that this is it. If he doesn't rule in his client's favor, he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail. And while he's shaking that weapon, guess what happened? Click. He put the weapon down. They said the judge leaned up over the table. He said, "Did that weapon just discharge?" He said, "Hand me that weapon." So the defense lawyer handed him the weapon. The DA stood up. "Your Honor, I object." And he said, "Approach the bench." He called the defense counsel and the prosecutor to the bench. He said, "I think I just heard this weapon discharge." The DA said, "It doesn't matter. A jury has found him guilty." So the judge started shaking the weapon. And when he shook the weapon, guess what happened? Click, it discharged again. The judge laid the weapon down on the bench. And he told the DA, "You got a problem here. You got a problem here. This weapon will be tested. And if it's consistent with what I just heard, you got a problem. Why wasn't this weapon tested? Why wasn't this weapon tested?" Nobody had an answer. So the partner, the father is sitting there, and some of his partners are sitting behind him. And he turns towards them, and these tears are rolling down his face. Now, don't get it twisted. He's still a gang member, but he's walking away from that life. He's sitting there, tears are rolling down his face. He's almost feeling like he's being released today, but he wasn't. But when he heard that click, he couldn't hold his emotions back no more, because he knew that he never fired that weapon. The weapon goes off to the lab, the state lab. The state lab sends it to the federal lab, to the FBI. The test come back. The weapon is misfired. And this particular weapon had a reputation for misfire. Yeah. They get called back into court. The judge tells the DA, based on this new evidence, he recommended that they sit down and come up with something. He gave them 30 days to come up with something, or he felt that he had no choice but to order a new trial. He said he was almost compelled to dismiss the charges outright. The DA argued. For 30 days, he did nothing. They get back up into the courtroom. The judge says, "Well, have y'all come up with something?" The defense said that they don't want to talk. The judge said, "I'm going to give you 1 hour. Y'all go in the back, figure out something, or I'm going to release this man today." The DA said, "You can't do that." He said, "Yes, I can. I'm going to dismiss it. We can dismiss with prejudice, without prejudice. But he's going to go home today one way or the other. So you need to work out something, because this weapon should have been tested years ago, before he went on trial." Now, I don't know why it wasn't, but there's testimony from him throughout all of his appeals that he asked his lawyer to get this weapon tested, and he said his lawyer lied and told him that he had the weapon tested. And the whole time y'all were trying to get this man to plead guilty, and he maintained his innocence, and he went up in there and y'all found him guilty, knowing that it was a possibility that this weapon was flawed. He said, "Get in the back and work it out." They went in the back and they worked it out. And when they came back out, he went home. Of course, they had to go back to the prison and process him out and get the paperwork, this, and that, but they processed him out. That night, after 20 years in the penitentiary, he went home to his daughter and his parents and her parents. And her father apologized to him and told him he was hurt. And he understood. He got it. He understood. And his daughter, that was a baby when this happened, that had no real memory of him, grew up getting to know him in the penitentiary, fought for him, went to see the lawyer, and helped him get up out of it. Why do I tell this story? Because a lot of my stories don't end good. You know, I tell this story because there are a lot of people that are in here that are guilty. There are a lot of people in here that are not. And you would hope that the system would catch that. And a lot of times it just doesn't. A lot of times it just doesn't. I wanted to tell you this story because I don't want you, whether a person is innocent or guilty, I don't want you to believe that you should give up on people. Because you never know. You never know. And whether a person is innocent or guilty, I believe that most people, but don't get me wrong, y'all know, I believe some people should never get out of prison. There's some people in here, I'm telling you, that are terrible. But if a person puts in the work, really works on themselves, they're not a manipulator, not a con artist, I think that they deserve a second chance. And we have to keep our hearts open to that. And this is one of those stories right here, y'all. He happens to be innocent, but he spent 20 years of his life in here. Spent 20 years of his life. Just something to think about. But look here. Before I roll out on y'all, I want to say one thing, right? Rivals is out. It's available on Amazon. Go on Amazon, type in Rivals, type in Joe Thomas Baker Jr., Joe Thomas Baker III, and it'll pop up. Get that thing, y'all. Y'all need to go get that thing. It ain't but $20. I know y'all got $20. Come on, y'all. This month, before the month's out, man, let's get 100 sales in, y'all. I'm not greedy. I'm not asking for a lot. I want to sell 100 copies before September is over with. I want to sell 100 copies of this book before September is over with. Okay? And this is not about trying to buy ice cream or anything else. This is about trying to do something really, really big. I want people to understand what this generation of gang violence is all about. Now, let me check this out, y'all. I want to read something to you from the book, okay? Let me tell you about this book first, what Rivals is, okay? In case you don't understand, right? Rivals is a heart-wrenching and deeply introspective book that embarks on an extraordinary journey that explores the entangled lives of individuals trapped in the unforgiving grip of generational gang violence. Set against a backdrop of crime-ridden streets, shattered dreams, and the haunting consequences of past actions. This compelling narrative delves into the profound depths of human emotion, revealing the complexities of love, loss, and the enduring pursuit of redemption. This is a once-in-a-generational book. And let me read you an excerpt from this book. And I hope that it leaves you wondering and wanting more. I really do hope it does that. Let me read this to you real quick. I want to turn to this page and find the right thing that I can read. Okay, this is it. This is it. Okay, I'm going to read this excerpt to you real quick. Growing up in the hood, he was never given the luxury of choice. This lifestyle, as crude and violent as it may appear to an outsider, was all he knew. To him, it was not wrong. It was survival. Society may judge, but it was a means of protection and identity in a world that had turned its back on him long ago. The hood is both a prison and a refuge, a place where bonds of brotherhood are formed amidst the chaos and where resilience is cultivated as a shield against a world that often seemed hostile. Come on, y'all. You gotta want to get this book. You gotta want to know more about these people in this book. The characters in this book could have very easily been me and my little son, Boo. For real. Very easily. We got problems in our communities out there, y'all. And this book is going to help you understand those problems a little bit better Yes, it's entertaining, but it's going to help you understand those people that you think are just all the way on the outs of things. It's going to help you understand them a little bit better. And you can't help people if you don't understand them. You can't sit over here and think that you can develop a plan to help people if you know nothing about them. Come on now. It's like going to a doctor, trying to get some help, and the doctor don't even talk to you and say what's wrong. He just comes in and meets and says, here, take these, you'll be okay. It's not how it works. Okay? So check that out. Go to Amazon.com, y'all, and type in Rivals. It's going to be in the description box. You're going to see the information where you can go to get the book. Check that out, y'all. For real. Do that for me, right? With that said, I'm going to wrap this thing up. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.